So Saturday's main slate, start with Mississippi State, Southern Miss. Remember, Southern Miss is essentially the Marshall team from last year. They basically took the entire roster there. That's going to be a heck of a game. 61.5 over-under, highest over-under on the slate. 36.5 point team total for Mississippi State, and then 25 for Southern Miss. I think that game's probably a little closer than that. Blake Shapen is a value at 68 here. I think that's an interesting option given the 36.5 point team total. Braylon Braxton also in play at 7,500. Shapen probably the more higher play there for me. Fluff. Ooh. Okay. So Fluff Bothwell, one of my favorites last year at South Alabama. Transfers to Mississippi State. He's 5,900. Him and Devon Booth are going to end up being the 1-2 punch there with 5,800 on Booth. And then things get interesting. So I don't know what to do with this backfield. I've gotten a ton of pump on Robert Briggs here, who comes over from Utah State. And Matt Jones is the former Ole Miss running back, didn't do a ton. Jeffrey Pittman comes over. Briggs at 42 is a good price tag. So that could be an option. He's a explosive weapon, we'll say. And I'm very interested to see what these wide receivers look like. So Evans has some hype, had some hype specifically to be the leading receiver for Mississippi State. However, Brennan Thompson looks to have overtaken him for that primary slot option in this Jeff Levy offense. I'm going Thompson as their top wideout, 5,200, pairing him with Shapen. I love that. I love that angle in this game. Where is Braylon Brown? Let's see. Okay, that is interesting. I think that might be your top option for Southern Miss at wide receiver. So there's going to be more research done on this. But initially out the gate, based on what research I've done, Braylon Brown might be the top wide receiver here, and he's listed at 3K. So Stone Men on Braylon Brown. This could end up being a game stack on this first slate, and that's going to be interesting. So that's in play very clearly. Moving on to FAU, which is basically Western Kentucky's offense from last year, and Maryland, who needs to win games. 59.5 point over-under, second highest on the slate. 37-point team total for Maryland, 22.5 for FAU. Veltkamp, 7,600. Maybe. He made too many mistakes in Conference USA for me to consider that at 76. I'm hoping Malik Washington is the starter. Freshman, he looks like he could be a difference maker for Michael Locksley here. 6,600 is an interesting price tag. This defense is probably slightly messy. We don't know if Washington's going to be the guy or not. Could end up being Martin. We'll have to wait and see. Running back wise, Nolan Ray should be the starter for Maryland after Roman Hemby transferred out. We'll get to him later because he's on here. We're not touching anybody in the FAU backfield. DeJuan Williams could end up factoring into this Maryland backfield as well. There's some talk of him switching, mixing in a good bit. But wide receiver, I think, is where we're going to end up wanting some guys. Easton Messer's going to catch 100 balls this year probably. He's an interesting option. Came over with Veltkamp. I think he gets peppered with targets. Interested to see how that ends up. 7,500 is a big price to pay, though. He's got to find the end zone in addition to catching 10 balls. Jaleel Farouk, probably the top option for Maryland. 6,300 is a okay price tag. It's a little pricey. Octavian Smith, probably the number 2 there. Wasim has been running with the ones with J.R. Wilson who came over from UVA, a little bit banged up. I hope Wilson gets his shot. He's a big kid. He's had some injury issues. If he gets a shot and is playing, 4,500 is a good price tag. 4,800 is a good price tag for Wasim. I think those ancillary weapons for FAU are showing value clearly right out the gate. Let's look at Northwestern Tulane. I've bet this game. Tulane should win this game. We'll see. Jake Retzlaff comes in. I think he's the starter at Tulane. He's not. He got a little overhyped at BYU. 5,500 is still a nice price tag there. Preston Stone at 4,900, also a nice price tag. I think Tulane's a little bit worse than they were a year ago. The running back room for Northwestern is just an absolute mess. Easy stay away there. McClure's getting a ton of hype, but people think that Turner's going to get most of the carries early as they look to replace Mekhi Hughes. And then Duda Barnes at 4,500 is going to get some work. So there's going to be a lot of mixing and matching. McClure's the most explosive of the bunch. I think Turner leads the way out the gate, so 5K is not an awful price there, but that's going to be a slog of a game with a 46.5 total, lowest on the slate, 27-point projection for Tulane, 20 for Northwestern. Don't particularly love that. Griffin Wild is going to be your top option at wide receiver for Northwestern. He's the only one I would play. At 5,200, he's in play. And then Amari Hayes is going to be the top option for Tulane. He's in play at 4,600. Certainly. Move on to Tennessee and Syracuse. Better game last year than it is going to be this year. 50.5 point over under, 32 points for Tennessee, under 20 for Syracuse. Syracuse loses their entire offense basically. Joey Aguilar, no shot at 6,400. Angeli, 6K, probably not. Running backs. Deshaun Bishop, probably the leader in the clubhouse to lead the room right out the gate. 6,400 is fair price tag for him. I could see playing that. Star Thomas is going to be the third guy in that room. No shot I'm playing him. Peyton Lewis is going to be the second guy up. 5K, not a great price tag. I would stick to Bishop there. Yassine Willis is going to take over for LaQuint Allen. He's probably 60% of the back that Allen is. 6,100 is too much to pay in this situation. So, no, I'm not going there. I'd much rather play Bishop with 2 more touchdown equity in the room there. Mike Matthews, probably the top option for Tennessee, pass catching wise. Would not play him at 6,400 because I don't think Aguilar is very good. Staley, we're going to have to keep an eye on. Brazil got arrested recently. Not playing him anyway. Staley's in play. He was looking to be the number 2, but we'll see what his injury status is later in the week. 5,100 is not an awful price tag, but he is the second option. And then Gill and Cook are priced appropriately. They're going to be the top 2 options in this offense. Angeli's going to have to sling it a little bit. I think Gill and Cook are potential options to play there. The big game of the day, Texas-Ohio State. Get more into that on a different show. 47.5 over under, 24.5 to 23. Ohio State favored. I would lean Texas. If I was betting that, I might bet that. Take Texas money line. 1.5 points there. I think it's going to be, I feel like a little bit more higher scoring than that. I know 2 guys are making their first start. Sayan's making his first start. Arch has a little bit of starting equity there previously. I believe there was a stat that guys are 0-18 making their first start against the top 5 opponent. So, yeah, 9K for Arch. That's way too much. They're going to be very good, but that's way too much for Arch right out the gate. Julian Sayin at 77, much more reasonable price tag, but still no. I think Texas's defense is actually good or very good. Wisner comes in at 7,100. Reports are Baxter looks pretty good. He's going to get his work. I think Gibson sees the field. Gibson's a nice price tag at 3,300, even as third guy. I think they're going to be slow bringing Baxter along. I'm a big Baxter fan, so, it's just that's how it's going to be. 6,800 on Peoples. Think he leads the way. Donaldson's a freaking refrigerator coming over from West Virginia. He'll be the 1B to Peoples 1A. That's going to be an interesting mix to see how both these backfields shake out. I would only play a Wisner, but I think that's probably a stay away there in that situation. Jeremiah Smith comes in at 9,000. Good gracious. That's going to be hard to play. Probably not. Carnell Tate at 68. No, thank you. I like that Ryan Wingo price at 65. As I mentioned in the Texas preview, Wingo, his numbers on a per target basis were as good as Jeremiah Smith and Ryan Williams last year. He was just blocked by some talented wide receivers. Jack injuries, no thank you. Max Clare, yes please, at 4,900. I will be all in. I love that price tag for him. Brandon is going to operate as your third wide receiver. Max Clare did damage at Purdue, and he was the only pass catching target available. 4,900 is great price tag there. 4,500 for DeAndre Moore. That does 6,500 and 4,500 do make it palatable to be able to roster Arch. I think Livingston is the third option in the room, with Mosley kind of backing up each of the other three. So Livingstone could definitely be in play to be able to stack Arch into this game if you really wanted to. So you could definitely get a Wingo Livingstone or more Livingstone, bring it back with Claire. That's in play, certainly in this game. All right. So the man behind me on the wallpaper, I want to see what he's priced at. That is Purdue quarterback Ryan Brown with a 50.5 team total facing Ball State. I am not touching a Ball State player. Don't even bother looking at them. I know Purdue stinks relative to the rest of the Big Ten, but a 34-point team total for Purdue. I want to play Ryan Brown. I want to see what his price is. Oh, we're playing all the lock him in. 5,200 Ryan Brown. That is our guy. That's our number one play on the slate. He's mobile. Look at this Illinois game, folks. That's the only game you need to pay attention to. Because remember, Purdue sucked last year. 17 carries, 118 yards, 297 passing, 3 touchdowns, 43 points, 5,200. Lock him in. Number one play on the slate. I don't even need to look at the rest of the games to be able to tell you. I'm playing the heck out of Ryan Brown. So lock him in. Play of the week, number one. All right, let's look at running backs. Maccabee, 6,300. He's kind of in a split with Malachi Thomas, who comes over from Virginia Tech. Both in play. I think they're reasonable. Quay Ashley comes over from Kennesaw State. He's probably their top option, but like I said, not touching Ball State guys right now. Wide receiver-wise, I don't love stacking with him. Where is Jackson? I need to do some more research on this. Michael Jackson. So I got to see who their starters are, but Michael Jackson has some pedigree, comes from USC and Georgia previously. Obviously hadn't done much there, or else he'd be at a better team than Purdue. But 3K, if you could stack him with him, I mean, you could kind of do whatever the heck you want on this slate. Nitro Tuggle at 4,700. He's from Georgia as well as a transfer. He could be interesting. So we'll have to wait and see. But I need to do a little more research other than knowing that Ryan Brown is the starter, and at 5,200, there is 0% chance that I'm not playing the heck out of Ryan Brown. All right, moving on to Toledo and Kentucky. You want to take a little shot here. If you want to take a nice little plus money bet, take Toledo to beat Kentucky. 48.5 point over under, 7.5 point spread. Kentucky 28, Toledo 20.5 is the game team totals. I don't think Kentucky's that good. I think that they're going to be looking for a new coach very soon. Zach Calzada, 5,300. He had a good year at JUCO last year, or wherever the heck he was, but maybe it was Incarnate Word, following the Kim Ward path, but he sucks. Tucker Gleason, solid player, 6,500. Not an awful price tag. If you want to take shots on Calzada, sure, but I just don't think you need to, not with Ryan Brown there. I'm going to pick Ryan Brown 10 times out of 10. So we do get the Chip Trainum revenge game. 6,900 is a lofty price tag to pay, but he is definitely going to be in the running as somebody who could end up being the conference MAC player of the year, certainly. McGowan is getting some hype as potential starting running back. He has come over from New Mexico State. There's optimism. So he's banged up right now. We're going to have to keep an eye on that. There's optimism. He's going to be ready. I think he's going to end up playing. 3,700. That's a good price tag for him as well. Dante Dowdle's likely to be the guy splitting with him. I like McGowan. He's an explosive back, certainly. So I think he's in play at 3,700 as a value option to get you those top options on the slate. Junior Vandeross, I think he has a monster season. It probably starts here. He played well as second fiddle, 1B to the 1A of Jerwan Newton last year. They bring in Traven Rudolph from Northern Illinois after he kind of transferred around a little bit with a stop at San Diego State in there. 5,300, not a terrible price tag. And I need to look into the wide receivers at Kentucky a little bit more. Kendrick Law, formerly of Alabama. Jamari Macklin, probably the top option, but I'll have to wait and see. Troy Stiletto, previously at Clemson. So there's some guys that could be in play potentially there, but I don't love that. So Toledo is a little priced up for my liking. Old Dominion, no shot in the world I'm touching that offense. We're going to end up playing plenty of Colton Joseph later in the year, but Signetti, if he's done anything, has been waxed teams that he's got a superior talent than, and Old Dominion he's familiar with from his time at James Madison, and we constantly destroyed them. So I don't think that's any competition there. Fernando Mendoza coming over from Cal, probably an upgrade on Curtis Rourke. This is the first year we're going to see Mike Shanahan as the offensive coordinator without Tino Sinceri. We're going to learn a lot in this game. 38.5-point team total for Indiana. That's all you need to know. Old Dominion probably doesn't even get to 16. I know they have a 16-point team total. Take the under. Indiana's probably going to wax them. 22.5 is not enough. So I'll lean there. Mendoza, he's going to be good. So he's a good play there. Who's the committee? You know, Signetti is always a committee guy. Roman Hemby probably leads the committee. I think Lee Beebe's involved. I think Kalon Black's involved. Haven't followed Signetti. He likes to use a ton of backs. Solomon Van Horst is still in college. That's unbelievable. I would have thought he was gone by now. Hemby's probably the lead dog. Beebe's good. I don't know that I'd really want to play any of them. They're probably going to each score a touchdown if I was to guess. Maybe even more, and that might sap Mendoza of his capability, which is why it's important to play multiple. Elijah Surratt, 7,100, definitely in play. Omar Cooper, definitely in play at 5,500. Old Dominion's secondary, typically awful. So both of them well in play. I think Surratt has a 1,000-yard season, 7,100, fine price tag. It's not underpriced, not overpriced. Jonathan Brady could be interesting. Comes over with Mendoza from Cal. Malachi Jackson, formerly of Appalachian State, 4,600. That's your top four wideouts there. Nobody particularly super underpriced in that situation. So we get into some blowout games, which is nerve-wracking. You know, you would think, hey, let's just go ahead and play all the top boys. Like Drew Aller at 8,900, that's way too much. You can't play Drew Aller. I know they have a 51.5-point team total, but they're favored by 45, and Nevada's projected to score 6 points. So obviously, no Nevada, just X them out of your player pool. Aller, he's too priced up. He's too close to Arch Manning. Arch Manning's going to play the whole game. Drew Aller's not going to play the whole game. Drew Aller's not going to run in this game. And yeah, it's possible he throws for 4 touchdowns, but he's going to sit after halftime. He could get his points early. It's possible. You know, if you want to take shots, go right ahead. It's just not kind of the way that I like to play. Singleton at 88, no thank you. Allen at 76, more palatable, maybe. But they could put up 100 yards and 2 touchdowns, and Singleton doesn't even get there. You know, so he's going to be right at the number at 3X. And maybe that helps, but I don't know. That's tough. I think Smith's the third back. That's a lot of money to spend on that. You're going to get guaranteed production, but still. Devontae Ross and Trevor Pena, probably the top 2 receiving options on this team. Luke Reynolds getting a lot of hype as a tight end, but I don't think he's Tyler Warren. There's no reason to believe that. I think Dinkins plays a lot more. Dinkins probably underpriced at 3,700. I probably lean Dinkins over Reynolds for right now, but Reynolds is the next one to be a great option for this roster. Similar situation, Georgia and Marshall. 55.5 point game total, 47.5 Georgia. Do not play Marshall. Their entire roster left to go to Southern Miss. They're going to suck this year. Gunnar Stockton, massively overpriced in this situation at 8,500. Georgia, all it takes is a defensive score in a blowout like this, 2 scores on defense, kick return, punt return, something like that, and you are dead. So no shot I'm playing Gunnar Stockton. 7,800 for Nate Frazier. Not terrible. Not great either. Like, you're going to see all these guys play. I bet you 7 Georgia backs get a carry. Josh McCray probably could find the end zone a few times, potentially. But these are guys that you could play, but later in the year, they're going to be even better plays. Roderick Robinson coming back. I think he plays some. Cash Jones, I'm sure he catches a wheel route for a touchdown. Everybody knows my love for that at this point. But, I mean, you're going to have walk-ons and water boys playing in the fourth quarter, and they'll probably have a running clock here. UMass, no. Wide receivers. Because there is a guy. Zachariah Branch, 6,900, probably the top option there. Improved, better version of Arian Smith. That's a lot of money to pay in a blowout situation, although he's the top option who could take a kick back to the house and get you a free 6 points there. Where's Noah Thomas? 4,500. That's not a bad price. And Colby Young, 56, probably a little overpriced. Dylan Bell, 53. I mean, any of these guys can score. Lawson Lucky could even score easily. He's probably the better pass catcher than him at Delp. They should have their prices flipped in this situation. Woo, UMass Temple. And everybody excited to watch this game? 49.5 over under, 26 to 24, basically. Temple with the -2.5. Temple now coached by Casey Keeler, one of my least favorite human beings in the world. I'm not a fan of him going back to Delaware. Giovanni McCoy versus Evan Simon is still a competition. Simon was running with the ones recently. 4,600, not a bad price tag there. He is mobile. They want a mobile quarterback. I don't think that's a terrible price tag either. So you can definitely plug in some Evan Simon. Brown's probably a better play, but Simon, not a bad play either if you really want to load up at the running back and wide receiver spots in the flex. Evan Simon, good super flex option there. Brandon Rose named the starter. Not super a fan there, but maybe at 5K you could take a shot. Running back wise, Casey Keeler brought his running back Jay Ducker with him. He's going to start from Sam Houston, 6K. Meh. He's fine option, but not great. Rocco Griffin comes over from UTSA to lead the room in UMass, 5,500. Meh. Also, they're in play, but not super excited. I need to look at these UMass wideouts to try to figure out if there's somebody worth a heck there. I don't know. So that's going to have to be a wait and see situation for me. Bermudez, I know he caught a touchdown the other day in a scrimmage. So 4,100 is a reasonable price tag. Colin Chase, also a reasonable price tag at 4,100. They could be in play here as cheap options at wide receiver. Last game on the slate. Alabama, Florida State. Better in name value than game. I will watch begrudgingly because I do want to see what Florida State looks like. So Thomas Castellanos, 6,200. Could be interesting in the Gus Malzahn system. That's not a terrible price tag. It could have been a lot more. He's definitely going to lead the way, but he did talk a lot of crap to Alabama, and they're going to want to rip his head off. So we'll see what happens there. Ty Simpson, likely overpriced at 8K, but I think he's reasonable. You could play him. It's a 50.5 over under, 32-point Bama, 18.5 to Florida State. That could be high, it could be low. It just depends how they can run the football. Speaking of running the football, I'm not touching a single Florida State running back out the gate. Chroma is the freshman. He's going to get in some hype. Sawchuk, I think, the best option in the room for the actual system. He is most like RJ Harvey of anybody in the room itself. Lucas is a gadget back. Don't play him. Roydell Williams sucks. And it's a revenge game for him, but he sucks. And then Cam Davis allegedly just does not fit this system. So no shot on playing him. Jam Miller being out is the biggest news. So that created some value for Alabama. You're going to want one of these backs. It's going to come down to Richard Young and Daniel Hill. So there's been a lot of talk that Hill is the top guy. There's, they mentioned Hill in the press conference. Young hasn't been getting as much mentions, but fan expectation is that Young is probably the best option. So that's something we're going to have to keep an eye on. Their values at 58 and 4K respectively. I think both see work. Dre Washington's going to see some work at 35, but I'm not the biggest fan of him. He's more of a gadget player like Lucas. So I would say Hill or Young, take shots there. We're going to see later in the week. Maybe I can narrow that down a little bit more. The only pass catching option you should ever consider for Florida State, probably the entire season, is going to be Deuce Robinson. He's 5,200. I still don't think he's a good option in this system or at all on the outside here in this specific game. Maybe he'll be fine later in the year. Probably will be fine later in the year, but let's focus in on Kalen DeBoer's wide receivers because that's where the guys come in. Ryan Williams was outperformed by Jeremy Bernard late in the year. I'll make no bones about it. Williams had big games. Bernard was much more consistent. So I think Bernard's the second, maybe third option. Horton, Bernard, I would lean towards playing those guys because the price disparity is a little bit much for a 9,100 Ryan Williams. I would rather play Jeremiah Smith at 9K than Ryan Williams. So that's kind of where things get interesting. And then we'll have to wait and see. I believe there's mentions that Rico Scott was running with the ones the other day in place of Bernard. So that is possible. You have to keep an eye on that. That'll be something that I'll check later in the week.